Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Wednesday, May 17th, 2017, and you're tuned in to episode 248 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. Our top story of the day was written up, as they so often are, by Tom Angel over at Mass Roots, who has a great piece up about a big move by Connecticut state lawmakers who appear to be signaling their intent to pass adult use legalization legislation with the release of a proposed budget that includes revenue generated from adult use marijuana sales tax. Yesterday, Democratic state lawmakers released their biennial budget proposal for fiscal years 2018 and 2019 and projected that the state would bring in $60 million and $180 million in tax revenue, respectively, from legal adult use marijuana taxes. This sets up an interesting dynamic in the state as lawmakers face down the end of the legislative session coming up on June 7th. We'll obviously keep an eye on this one. Leafly has a good piece up about some blowback being felt within the industry to the proposed deal between Iowa and Minnesota to transfer medical marijuana across state borders. I reported on this story yesterday, which involves a bill passed in Iowa compelling the state to engage with Minnesota medical marijuana companies to provide medical marijuana to patients in Iowa. John Hudak, a senior fellow at the Brookings Institute and an expert on marijuana policy, thinks the idea could be disastrous for the industry, saying, quote, "It's something that should not just be alarming in Minnesota and Iowa. This should alarm every state that's relying on this very fragile framework that's keeping medical marijuana together." Unquote. Hudak is concerned that any kind of cross-border medical marijuana business could give Attorney General Jeff Sessions the excuse to crack down on the entire medical marijuana community. This is a good one to click over for the full read. As always, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com and on our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily. Our final top story of the day is a quick update on a headline from yesterday when I reported on a journalist up in South Dakota who was being compelled to testify against some medical marijuana consultants by South Dakota Attorney General Marty Jackley in a case involving the Flandreau Santee Sioux tribe and their plans to grow and sell medical marijuana on reservation lands. As a general rule, it's not cool to compel the media to testify in cases like this, something that thankfully someone at the South Dakota AG's office finally figured out because Courthouse News Service is reporting that reporter Dana Ferguson is no longer being asked to testify in the matter. I'll chalk this up as a win for justice and the media. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz out on headlines, let's quickly talk about the job we're hiring for doing sales and business development for this podcast and our weekly show, Marijuana Today. With Marijuana Nation now around 20,000 listeners or so strong, pulling down more than 100,000 downloads a month, we're at the point where we need help with the sales and account management side of things. If you or someone you know knows the sales process from prospecting through closing and can just get shit done, then you need to get in touch with me about coming to work with MJ Today Media. While this is not a full-time gig to start, a successful candidate could turn it into one pretty much right away. We have that much inventory to sell right now. If you or anyone you know would kill it at this job, please swing over to mjtodaydaily.com/jobs and send in your application. That's mjtodaydaily.com/jobs. All right, time for the blitz. Yesterday, the Nevada State Assembly voted in favor of a state bill that would let local governments allow for the public use of marijuana within properly licensed commercial establishments. I've reported a number of times on this proposed bill, sponsored by State Senator Tick Segerblom, which now heads to the desk of Governor Brian Sandoval for his final deliberation. Unfortunately, things don't look good there in terms of the governor signing the bill into law, with a spokesperson releasing a statement saying, quote, "The governor has called for Nevada's recreational marijuana industry to be restricted, responsible, and ultimately respected. He is doubtful whether pot lounges would achieve these stated goals, but will review the legislation should it arrive on his desk for signature." Unquote. Up in Washington state, Governor Jay Inslee moved his state one step closer towards officially sanctioning organically grown marijuana with the signature of a bill that creates an opt-in system for organic marijuana cultivators and processors. Republican State Senator Ann Rivers' bill rolls out the system over the next year and a half and will likely serve as a model for other states interested in doing the same. Johnny Green over at Weed News has a good story up about the horde of marijuana industry folks currently camped out in Washington, D.C. right now for the 7th annual NCIA Cannabis Industry Lobby Days. Around 250 legal marijuana industry professionals are hitting the hill this week, visiting lawmakers to press the case for further marijuana policy reform. I know we have a lot of listeners among those 250 professionals, so if you're listening to the show right now while in D.C., keep up the great work. A new report from the Minnesota Department of Health shows the majority of medical marijuana patients in that state's system reported receiving some kind of positive health benefit from being a patient during the program's first year. The study used both survey data as well as sales totals and other information and found that on a scale of 1 to 7, with 1 being no benefit gained and 7 being the most, 64% of surveyed patients reported either a 6 or a 7. On the other end of the scale, 9% of patients said they got little to no benefit with a score of 1, 2, or 3. New Mexico's ranks of registered medical marijuana patients has grown by around 8,000 people since the beginning of this year, bringing the total number up over 40,000. As the number of patients has grown, so too has the number of dispensaries, with there now being 56 up and running compared to just 36 in January of last year. Those 56 dispensaries have pulled in, over the first quarter of the year, more than $19 million, up 91% over the same period from the previous year. Yesterday, California Senator Kamala Harris made it pretty clear as far as what she expects from U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions when she said during an event held by the liberal think tank Center for American Progress, quote, "Let me tell you what California needs, Jeff Sessions. We need support in dealing with transnational criminal organizations and dealing with human trafficking, not in going after grandma's medicinal marijuana," unquote. And finally for today, The Cannabist has a great piece up that dives into the backstory behind the recent failed push for medical marijuana reform within the Texas state legislature. So we go over to this one for the full read. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at MJTodayDaily and visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to all of our awesome patron listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the patron listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with Marijuana Today. Today.
One take, Shay. One take.